So I'm here with Jean Marie Jobs, who is the founder of Gap Community. We met way back when we were kids
Way back.
in 1997
So crazy.
and doing some transformational work. She was a facilitator and I was a participant back in 1997. And she's gone on to do amazing things over the last 25, 26 years. So tell me just a little bit about Gap Community.
Thank you. Yeah. So Gap Community is a transformational training organization, and we have been around for 25 years. We incorporated as a nonprofit in 1998.
Wow.
And we do experiential transformational training really all over the place. We do a lot of things in the States and a few things abroad.
Around the world, yeah.
Yeah.
What countries have you been to or done work in?
We've done quite a bit of work in South Africa and Zambia. We've done work in Haiti and in the Philippines.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So we can dive into maybe another time, but I would definitely be curious to see like what maybe you can touch on it briefly, like what differences do you see when you're doing things, say in Africa versus in the U.S.? How's that experience different?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are differences and there's also similarities. So cultural context can create some differences. For example, in the United States, we tend to be a right-wrong culture. Like the background is right-wrong.
Absolutely.
And in other countries, especially in the continent of Africa, there is more of an honor-shame backdrop. So a little bit different as far as where people's concerns are and what they're looking at. But ultimately, what I find, no matter where I have trained, and I've trained a lot of places with Gap, but also on the corporate side, that people are all in the same conversations. Do I matter? Does my life make a difference? How can I make this blip on the screen count?
Yeah.
What's my
The dash.
purpose?
Yeah.
The dash, exactly. So to me, I'm listening for what's connected, how people are connected, and what are some of the similarities. And I find people are people wherever I go.
People are people. You got to absolutely. And I like how this past weekend you were saying how we're just human.
Yeah.
We're just in a human experience.
We are.
And sometimes we think we should be in something more elevated than that, perhaps, or we're better than humans. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, I think we both love the topic of transformation. So I thought we'd talk just a little bit about the idea of transformation. So when you hear that word, what comes to mind?
Transformation to me is the moment where you see something and make a new choice. And sometimes it seems when people talk about transformation that it's some place that you arrive at. A lot of times people use a butterfly metaphor. Like you're the caterpillar, then you go in the cocoon, and then you've transformed into a butterfly. And I think there are experiences that do lend themselves to more permanency. And I also think that because we're all human, we oscillate. We can go back and forth. We can have this one beautiful moment where we don't default to an automatic reaction and we create something new. And then a week later, we're back over here struggling with something similar. But hopefully we have more resources and ways to engage it. But to me, transformation is a dynamic about what are we creating and what's possible right here, right now, in this moment, and staying present enough to see those resources when we need them.
Yeah, so it can be like an instantaneous thing, but it could also be a process. And it's almost like forks in the road, you know, where you start making a decision to go down a different path and grow in a different way.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what we both love about doing this transformational work. So, here in Nashville, we primarily do a 4-day training. We call it the Encounter Training, and you do basically a similar 4-day training. You call it the Awaken Training. But you know, how would you describe the 4-day training if you were telling someone about it?
You know, I often tell people it's an opportunity to introduce yourself to yourself.
Hi, I'm Joshua.
I know, right? Well, because most of us are so busy living life, and especially it feels like more and more, like that's not slowing down, that we get up, brush our teeth, eat our breakfast, go to work, come home, go to sleep, you know, and we get in such a routine, almost like a treadmill, that we very rarely stop and pause and get off the treadmill and look at ourselves and look at our life and go, what is going on? what's going on here? What am I creating? Is that the thing I'm intending to create? Is that thrilling to me? Does that ignite passion and excitement in my life? Or all of a sudden, did 7 years just go by? And I don't even
Exactly.
know what happened.
Yeah, we call it the drift. You know, you
Yes.
just kind of like, if you imagine somebody, you get in the ocean, if you've ever been in the ocean and you get on a floaty and you lay down for a few minutes and you wake up and you're like way down the beach
Where
and you're
am
like,
I?
where am I and how did I get here? And I
Exactly.
think that's a very common experience, especially for someone like, let's say in their 40s or 50s, and you're like, who the heck am I at this point? So maybe an opportunity to rediscover yourself would be one thing. We talk about one of the exercises we call living mirrors, you know, feedback.
Yeah.
There's a lot of feedbacks. Talk about feedback and how that can help.
Well, I think feedback is really, it's a couple things. Number one, it's critical. None of us can get where we're going in life if we ignore feedback. Right? We're going to hit the repeat button over and over because we can't hear how to course correct when it means the most to us.
Yeah.
And it is human to at times feel defensive about feedback or make it about our identity. But really, in my perspective, feedback is this beautiful gift that actually propels us towards our vision and propels us towards the things that are most important to us. If I don't want to hear from my husband any feedback about the way I'm wifing, then I will never be the wife I'm committed to be.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to stay in my own
Reality.
which isn't reality. Right? Because we all have a fairly flattering view of ourselves in some way. And it's an opportunity to expose that and to allow us to grow and change and be creative. Because without feedback, there's really also no creativity. Because again, we get stuck easily in what seems certain and what's familiar. Even if we would say, that's actually not a great thing.
Yeah.
I don't like this pattern in my life.
Yeah.
But somehow it's coming again around the next corner. And so often we have the same relationships over and over with different heads on the bodies. And patterns are beautiful because they let us know, hey, there's feedback we're not paying attention to. There's an underlying belief that has anchored us into something that is so predictable we can't even see it. And we think we're making choices, but we're not.
Yeah.
We are on default.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's this whole area of knowledge that's what we don't know that we don't know.
Exactly.
And there's a whole lot of that.
More of that than anything else.
More of that than what we actually know, but we're often unaware of that. And the only way to discover that typically is through feedback. So it's critical, I think, to grow as a person. I love the idea too. You talk a lot about the idea of playfulness and creativity in your trainings. Tell me a little bit more about how you see playfulness and creativity being used in the type of transformational environments that you create.
Yeah, thank you. I just notice sometimes when people are in learning environments, the temptation is to get really hard on ourselves. And some of us walk around in that conversation all the time anyhow, just really hard on ourselves. Oh, I made a mistake. Oh, I should have done this. And all the shoulds and all the self-condemnation.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yep, all the shame. And to me, yes, we don't always hit the mark, but no one always hits the mark. So can we lighten up our mood and our attitude? Can we bring a different energy to it, a playfulness or creativity, a flexibility, so that the learning itself becomes joy instead of this measuring stick arbitrarily that I have put up against my life and I always fall short?
Yeah. Yeah. Who would you say, and I know maybe the answer is everybody, but who would you say the encounter training, the awaken training, who is it for? Like if you were to say, who's the person that it's for?
You know, I like to think it's for people that are really willing to take themselves on. People that are at that place in life where they say, you know what, there's something bigger than my ego at stake in my life.
Humble, hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are good qualities.
Yeah.
If you're at that place in life. If you're certain and satisfied and everything's great,
rock on.
Yeah, rock. Keep going. Yeah,
That's right.
you've got it all worked out, but most of us probably don't. And I love the idea in Scripture about going from glory to glory, right? The idea that we can continue to to grow and evolve, and there's always more. There's always more. I love I know you got a chance to spend some time with my mom. She's well, we won't say how old she is, but she's about to be a great grandmother. And, I see her still going for it.
She is.
She was a participant in the event we just had this past weekend, and she was still learning and growing and still asking questions and still like, hey, help me work this thing out. And people would look at her and go, I mean, she's got it together. Like, she is a counselor. She is an advisor to people, but yet she's still trying to grow and go for more, because there's always more for us. Well, any final thoughts you want to share on the idea of transformation, or how we can serve people in that regard?
Yeah, I think for most of us, if we can think about transformation as a gymnasium, which to me is the easiest metaphor to grab onto.
I love that, yeah.
Right? Like it's just lifting the weights.
Yeah.
It's going in, it's the time, intensity, repetition. It's I go and I go again and I go again and I lift the weights just like you do if you go to a gym, because that is the only way to strengthen certain muscles.
Yeah.
And no one expects to go to the gym and watch and then get stronger. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes in life, we want to watch other people go through their trials and circumstances and struggles, and we feel super inspired by it, or we get a lot of insight. But insight isn't transformation, because transformation includes an activation, not just up here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, using that workout analogy, something I've been really focused on lately, and listening to people like Peter Attia and Huberman, and one of the things they talk about is like, what do you want to be able to do when you're 75?
Yeah.
And I was actually this weekend writing some of that stuff down. Like, hey, I want to be able to dead hang for a minute. I want to be able to still be able to dance. I want to be able to play with my great grandkids on the floor. Yeah. And those are things I want to do. But one of the things that's hitting me as I was writing that down is like, I got to be able to do more than that today. Like, I've got to be, like, I have to do the work now to be where I want to be when I'm 75. And I think in the emotional arena, in the relational arena, like, I want to have a awesome relationship with my wife.
Yeah.
And I do, but I want to have even more. I want to have an awesome relationship with God. But what am I doing today to get myself to that place? It ain't gonna happen if I'm not putting in the effort and cooperating with God to move toward those things where I want to be in the future. So I think the Encounter training, the Awaken training are opportunities, a vehicle to help you move toward your vision of where you want to be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of people get a lot of breakthrough over the years through these events. So
yeah, that's such a good perspective. I think it's easy to live life and not recognize that every choice leads us to a new horizon. And what is that horizon you're heading towards? And if I keep doing what I do, I'm going to keep getting what I've already gotten, right? So to think about what's the stake in the ground at 75 or 80, or mine's 120 right now.
Yeah.
And
I want to be 120.
Who do I want to be there? And what I want to be able to do? What kind of relationships do I want to have? What would fulfill me? And that starts yesterday, right? That starts now. I need to start shifting some things now. So that is a possibility at that point in my life.
Exactly. Well, it was good to hang out with you a little bit.
Pleasure.
She's been hanging out here with us, and enjoyed spending time with you, and love all that you do in serving other people around the world.